Sterilizing, buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air. Fuck them back, it's only for they bomb. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one makes countries laugh to your face, fight and die. Cause God will give. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social side, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. See their shit, force a bear. Fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape. They burn the kids. No one leaves countries. Lie to your face, fight and die. Cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat right here on UCY.TV. Did I mention it's the best little network on the internet? I'm proud to be part of it. Today is 26th of March 2017. And my guest today is Michael Walsh, or Mike Walsh, prolific writer. He's written many books. He's a historian. Trying to get us some real history, and he's doing a very good job of it. And he also writes for the Renegade Tribune, if you want to look that up. And Michael, we've had a bit of a snag here. I was talking to Michael this morning. He called me just after 11 and wondered if the show was still on, or we had a mix-up in times and that. And we did actually have a mix-up in times. I was sure that, Michael being in Spain, I was sure there was a 6-hour time difference, but when we synchronized our clocks, so to speak, he came up 5 hours out. So that's why he called at 11 this morning, wondering if the show was still a go, and I said, yeah. But you're an hour early. And what happened, he is in fact 6 hours out. And what happened was that we turned our clocks back here a couple of weeks ago, or turned our clocks ahead here a couple of weeks ago. So when we were talking about doing the show, we were out an hour because they didn't turn their clocks ahead till last night. So, Michael's lovely wife prepares dinner at 6 o'clock, which is what it is there now. So Michael will be just sitting down to dinner. So Michael is going to have a dinner with his lovely wife, and then he will come on the show at 1 o'clock our time, which is fine with me. And we're going to discuss his book, Trotsky's White Negroes. And so I'm looking forward to that. Sorry about the time mix-up. I had no idea that different places were moving their clocks at different times. And I was right in my first assessment. There was a 6-hour time change, but we farted around with that, and it only ever came up to 5 hours. But now we know why that happened. And in fact, today we're back to normal, and he is 6 hours time difference. So we'll let him have dinner, and the man is 74 years old now, and like he said, I'm 74 and I'm still working hard today. Which brings up something that's always annoyed me, and that is this idea of retirement. um, you don't retire, okay? You know, you may slow down some as you get older, but you don't retire. Retire is you know, people work at a job for 30, 40 years, and all they're really working for is retirement. They're not working for pleasure. No, there's the odd person out there that really enjoys the job. For the most part, most people can think of a million other things they'd rather be doing, but they don't want to give up their benefits. And damn, you know, I got just 6 more years to retirement. What does that even mean? You know, 6 more hours that you don't have to get up and go to a job you didn't want to be at in the first place. And the question is, if you disliked it, why didn't you just leave it right off the bat? See, we get pigeonholed into these things. Or as my niece said when she was quite young, she said, let me get this straight. So we're born and we play for a while and have fun, and then they drag us off to school and they stick us in school and they teach us a whole bunch of useless stuff or stuff we're not interested in. And then we go out and then we work until we retire, and then shortly thereafter we die. And I said, you pretty much nailed it. And that's how wrong things are. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be enjoying your life. You're supposed to go and get good at the things you're actually naturally good at. But unfortunately, the way this system's set up, it's set up to drive your intellect down. It's not to expand your intellect. It's not to expand your horizons. It's to stick you in a box and keep you there like a rat on a wheel until they've used you up. And one of the reasons for the assisted suicide, and one of the reasons for the you know, earlier and earlier so-called dementia problems or Alzheimer problems is that once you've retired, you become not an asset of the corporation, you become a liability. And, you know, what they do really is they try to suck whatever wealth you may have that you built up over the years in your home, your RSPs, and they make you weak and ill, and then they fire you off into a corporate senior's home, of which whatever wealth you had is sucked out of you, and then you die. And they close the account. And I don't want to sound negative, but that's just the way it is. But anyways, Michael will be on in a little less than an hour, and I really like this guy. This guy's got no lay down in him. I was telling him about the gentleman I met at the courthouse who's 78, which makes Michael young. And the man at 78 is just a firecracker. He never quit learning. He never quit observing. He never quit asking questions. And, you know, it's for him, time's running. And he's, let's get this going here. So, you know, and he does the same thing all of us complain about. Doesn't matter how old we are, that those around us seem to be completely brain dead. So we don't worry about the brain dead people. We have to pick out the people who can actually still think, regardless of their age group. You know, Don, who I met, 78. I'm 62. Michael, 74. I met some people in their 30s, some in their 20s, who are basically, I guess you would call, compared to the society that we were brought up, I guess you could call these people the outsiders. And these are the people, the other people, the schools and that say, you know, stay away from, don't listen to them, yada, yada, yada. But that's all being broken down now. So we need to join the generations together, because each generation each generation has something to offer. And we need to join the generations together, and then we can build a powerful defense or front against what they have planned for us. Now, I read a story, and I'm going to try and find it here when I went to get my coffee. It was right on the front page of the Toronto Star about dinosaurs, that apparently they might have messed up on their theory of dinosaurs and that. You know how science is. It's garbage. So I was on the Toronto Star, but I'm at the Toronto Star now, and I don't see it. I'll try and dig through here because it's quite pertinent to things like climate change, and when the scientists told you not to eat eggs or butter or this or that, and then years later told you, oh, we made a mistake. Actually, it's good for you. And that goes back to a speech that David Suzuki gave, I don't know, it was in the 80s or the 90s. It was either Oregon or it was either a university in Oregon or I read this a long, long time ago. It was either Oregon or Washington State, where he's telling the students there that the funny thing about science is things you may believe today to be true, just like I did, you'll find out 20 years down the road that most of it doesn't hold water. And that's where this idea of the new priest came up. You don't question the science. Well, you have to question the science because they're the new priests, they're the manipulators, they're the deceivers, just like the priests of old were. And I found it rather interesting that Suzuki said that. Didn't say it in Canada, he was in the States when he said it. But that they would find, just like he did, that 20 years after you believed some scientific theory, you will find out that it was absolutely incorrect. So there's a story here about dinosaurs. I'm going to look for it. But there's a story here right away that kind of puts a smile on my face. And this is from Toronto or the GTA. It says, Earth Hour wasn't as dark in Toronto this year. Good. That's very good. Fewer Torontonians shut off the lights for Earth Hour this year, Toronto Hydro reveals, but the city did see a 2.8% drop in electricity demand. What kind of a twisted up mess is that? Fewer Torontonians, okay. Night for the 10th anniversary of Earth Hour than last year, according to Toronto Hydro. However, Toronto residents are using less and less power overall. So the drop in participation during this year's event doesn't mean enthusiasm for the movement is waning, said Toronto Hydro spokesman Tory Glass. Now, see, there's a little bit of manipulation. There's a little bit of deception. There's a little bit of fraud. Okay. Fewer Torontonians shut their lights off, but it was a success because overall less power was used. Okay. So you have people using them LED lights and that. But the fact remains is that the people didn't shut their lights off for Earth Hour. That's the point. It goes on to say here, people are actively saving electricity in their everyday lives, so Earth Hour seems to have done a great job of promoting the message, she said by an email. Well, we should sue her because she's full of crap. People are actively saving electricity in their everyday lives because they can't afford it. Period. They can't afford it. Less people turned off their lights because the propaganda of Earth Hour and that is waning. Propaganda has a shelf life just like any other product, and the shelf life is past due on this climate garbage. And so now they got to spin it out a different way. In the city, electricity demand, it was 77 megawatts, lower than a typical Saturday night in March, a 2.8% drop that is equivalent to taking 31,000 homes off the grid, according to Toronto Hydro. This is the kind of same nonsense they used to puke out when they were putting up the wind turbines, which is still doing. They would say, this small wind farm here it produces enough power to energize 31,000 houses, but only when it's running at full power, which means max. And the windmills only have a capacity, an overall capacity of a little over 10%. Sometimes they try to run the numbers up to 25%, but when you look at the engineering studies, it's running around 10%. A lot of times, up here, the windmills ain't even moving. Why? Because it's not windy. Or they run when you don't need the power. So it's not used. It's driven into the ground in that. And so this is, again, these people just constantly lie to you and make excuses. Last year, the drop was 89 megawatts. And in 2015, it was a 103 megawatt drop. So you can see, and again, you also have to take into consideration March weather. Okay, this is a little bit warmer March, so you're going to use less electricity. It doesn't mean you turn your lights off. Okay, which they say right at the beginning of this story. Less Torontonians turned off their lights. That's the story right there. Everything else after that is manipulation. Because these guys are criminals. Local revelers celebrated Earth Hour with candlelit acoustic performance at bars across the city, guided walks, and even a party illuminated with paper lanterns and candles at Kew Gardens in the beach neighborhood. The World Wildlife Fund started Earth Hour in Australia in 2007. The event, running from 8:30 9:30 local time across the world, encourages people, businesses, and communities to shut off non-essential electricity to show support for environmental sustainability. So support the fraud. Show your support for the fraud that we are implementing upon you, is what it is. In the decades since it began, the event has grown into a global movement, because we need a global movement, because we need global propaganda in order to cripple the global mind, I guess. With millions of participants in 172 countries, Earth Hour is a visual signal that ordinary people the world over want to change climate change, said the World Wildlife Fund in an emailed statement Saturday. It's a sign we haven't forgotten about the Paris Agreement and our determination to halt the degradation climate change causes to our environment. When you see a candle in your neighbor's window, when you see your community go dark, when you see that these small symbolic actions are visible from outer space, the world over, you can see you're not alone on this issue. That just pulls at your heartstrings, doesn't it? This pulls at your heartstrings. And who was one of the guys that got the World Wildlife Fund off the ground? Prince Philip. What does Prince Philip wants to do? He wants to come back as a virus after he dies and cull the human population. Nice people. The Toronto skyline was dimmer than usual to mark the occasion as local landmarks like the CN Tower and the famous Toronto sign at Nathan Phillips Square shut off their lights. Thousands of other landmarks worldwide also went dark for the 10th anniversary of the event, including the Eiffel Tower, the Sydney Opera House, Big Ben, the Empire State Building, and the Pyramids of Egypt. Wow. I'm so impressed. And over this past 10 years, the Eiffel Tower, being in Paris, France, has been overrun with Muslims and the implementation of Islam. The Sydney Opera House in Australia, Big Ben in England, the Empire State Building in the United States, all overrun with migrants designed to take down our nations. So it is the very same thing as Earth Hour. It is very dangerous for us to get involved in this stuff. It is very dangerous for us to promote this stuff, because these are all tools designed to destroy our nations. So to all those who didn't turn off their lights, I want to thank you. We need to really propaganda. We gotta flip the propaganda on them. Like remember my ex co-host John from way back. Well, we started way over on the hell was that thing called? anyways, we moved from there to Orion Talk Radio, and he's in Toronto, so he has more access to this population than I do. But they used to go and flyer cars in parking lots. They used to go and put those Frankenfood stickers inside the coolers in the grocery stores. It's a very small thing to do. It's not dangerous, and it's inexpensive. But that's where we've really failed. That's where we've really failed generally. We have never become as active as necessary. In fact, we really haven't even come out of the gates yet. And every little thing helps. And this is how they get to people's brains, with this constant, never-ending propaganda machine. And we haven't countered it. And because it's a psychological, spiritual war, we need to use at least the same tactics they are. And when they come up with something as stupid as this Earth Hour that we can tear to pieces in a heartbeat, then we need to, go fire up your printer and print out, I don't care, print out 10, print out 200, print out 500, print out whatever you can afford to print out. Say your bid on it, explain it, understand it, and paper it. And it's all about getting seeds into people's heads. And people are really coming to the end of their capacity to absorb any more of this propaganda that's been shoved at them. Their brains are now at this point, back when Earth Hour and all this nonsense started, people's minds opened to this propaganda. And now, when people see this propaganda, I would think that the average person is now shutting their brain down to it. Oh, more of that shit, right? Kind of attitude. Oh, look, honey, look, it's Earth Hour. Oh, this is wonderful. We'll get the kids and shut off. We'll get the neighbors. Call Susan and Dave, right? And we'll get together and we'll shut the lights off. That's how it was. Now people, oh, that's shit. Okay? The propaganda's hit the end of its shelf life. It's spoiled. This is our opportunity. It's actually better now because, had we gone out and, I always denounce the Earth Hour and all of this nonsense, but people were so propagandized that they accepted it. Now their brains all on their own is starting to push it away, and that opens their mind to the message they need to receive, and that's the message that we have the capacity to get to them. And, if you put it up on a bus stop shelter, people stop and wait for the bus. Flyer a car, Make up some cards. That's an expensive proposition. Make up a few cards. Put down, all you got to do for your information or whatever, FYI the place, right? Make a simple little business card and put some links on it, right? Put some links to some websites or some YouTube or whatever that you find pertinent, and just stick it under the wiper. They will pick it up. Nobody drives a car around with a piece of paper under the wiper in a particular card. And our job is to plant seeds. And the ground is becoming finally more fertile to accept those seeds because of the length of this propaganda that's been going off. People, like I said, are getting tired of it. It's not fun anymore. The same people that got all excited about getting their neighbors together and shutting down all the lights on the street. I remember that shit. Back at the beginning of this Earth Hour nonsense. And you look at these people and go, man, you're brain dead. But they have to go through these things, I suppose, to come out the other side. And streets that were completely black in this neighborhood back in 2010 are no longer black. In fact, there's very few places with the lights out anymore. And so that means that people are starting to get it. It's not fun anymore. So it's a good opportunity for us to push back, kind of thing, and it doesn't have to be ugly. Let's see. We got some. We have some comments. Here's a comment from Toronto Hydro. No doubt. That's what it says. Toronto Hydro left a comment in the Toronto Star. Thanks to everyone who took part in Earth Hour. And Earth Hour has a comment. I love this. This is the comment section of the Toronto Star on the Earth Hour story. And the first comment I see is from Toronto Hydro. The second one I see is from Earth Hour. Wow, it's getting tough, eh, boys? Here's another comment from Earth Hour. Check out this Earth Hour video. Here's another comment from Earth Hour. Isn't this amazing? Earth Hour, Earth Hour, Earth Hour. I don't see any comments. Here's a comment from NBC New York. Watch the Empire State Building dim its lights for Earth Hour. Here's a Rodman guy. Midtown Toronto during Earth Hour. Not so dark. We can do better, he says. Lights are still burning bright over Toronto. And this is, yeah, okay. What did it say? Earth Hour Toronto fail. What was that comment? What is this? CPRA. So that's got to be some kind of the compliance something association. So that is another. I don't see any comments really in here. Here's a comment from Canada. Little comment, little gestures make a difference. This is Earth Hour Canada 150. So this is from Canada, the corporation. There's Toronto Hydro again, Earth Hour again. There's very little comments in here. This is all people that are attached to the propaganda machine. That's too freaking funny. That's way funny. I don't see any comments in here from anybody other than Earth Hour, some other organizations that are connected to it, the Corporation of Canada, a news source, NBC, and yeah, this is brilliant. So that shows you the excitement that people feel about the propaganda now. The only ones commenting are the propagandists. Back in 2010, 2011, 2012, these comment boards were full of, me and Nancy, we got the kids and the neighbors and all this kind of stuff. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. It's a religion. It's a cult. It's a satanic cult because it is the worship of the creation and not the creator. These people are satanic, stupid, little mindless, dweeby, little pointy-tailed assholes, or what I call my town staff, which they seem to understand. I just call them Satan's little helpers, and they go, "We wish you wouldn't say that." Well, you got to call it as you see it, right? So that's pretty funny, that story, because it is very telling as to how this is working out. Now I got another story here. I don't know where I'm going to find these damn dinosaurs, but there's a story here I want to look at. This is kind of bothersome. I don't know what the story is about. I'm just looking at the headline here. Toronto police charged in death of man tasered 8 times in a bathtub, and somehow the Toronto police were cleared. I don't know, because normally they're out on all of this stuff as they felt threatened. Now, I don't know if this guy pointed a rubber duck at these cops in the bathtub and it got them all nervous. I'm going to go find out, though. Toronto police cleared Gonzalez died after an incident involving police that began after he locked himself in the bathroom, prompting his wife to call police to his family's apartment in the West End. So obviously, probably this guy was having some difficulties. Toronto's police watchdog has cleared Toronto police in the death of a man who died after he was tasered eight times by police in his bathtub. Tony Lepero, director of Special Investigations Unit, said in a news release Thursday that there are no reasonable grounds to lay criminal charges against any officers in connection to the November 7th, 2015 death of Gonzalez. Gonzalez, 42, part-time cleaner at a hospital, and the father of two, died after an incident involving police that began after he locked himself in the bathroom, prompting his wife to call police to his family apartment in the West End. Now, that should give everyone the understanding that if you have a problem, right, go get your neighbor, call a relative, call your building supervisor, whatever it is. The last people you want to call to come to your home to help you out is the police. Several officers responded, including a tactical squad carrying a battering ram and shields, and the incident culminated in the repeated use of two conducted energy weapons, better known as tasers. Gonzalez was later rolled out on a stretcher and admitted to St. Joseph Healthcare Center and died the next day. According to SIU, despite the repeated use of a taser, the cause of Gonzalez's death was determined to be complications of acute cocaine toxicity. The post-mortem report did not indicate that taser discharges played any role in the death, adding that there was no evidence of other kinds of excessive force by the police. Kevin Wolf, Gonzalez's lawyer, said the family is disappointed with SIU's conclusion. Last year, the family filed a $10 million lawsuit against the Toronto Police Services Board and 10 unnamed officers alleging grossly excessive force and protracted assault and battery. Asked about the lawsuit, which had been paused in the courts until SIU completed its investigation, meaning a statement of defense has not yet been filed. Chief Mark Sanders said the officers did not act unlawfully, as shown by the SIU investigation. Based on their decision, they made it very clear that the taser was not a direct result of the death of that gentleman. It's unfortunate that when we have an interaction and there's loss of life, we examine and we look at our procedures and policies and what we can do to prevent that first and foremost. Sanders said the two unnamed Toronto police officers at the center of the probe refused to participate in the SIU review or interview and did not provide the watchdog with any copies of their duty notes as in their legal right. So now we have an investigation of a death of a janitor who was tasered 8 times, and the gentleman involved in the tasering gave no evidence, did not accept an interview by the SIU Special Investigation Units, but the Special Investigations Unit come up with the result that these gentlemen didn't do anything wrong, even though these gentlemen didn't turn over their notes or accept an interview by the SIU so they could question them. Geez. Little crooked here. Wolf called that a cause for concern, really. It invites very serious questions as the scope and integrity of the SIU's investigation if the subject officers themselves refuse to cooperate in the investigation, Wolf said. Now, I did have 2 SIU officers here some time ago, a few years back, and over something that happened in a courtroom to a lady, and they came to ask for my information. And we had a very nice chat. They were here, I think, must have been close to 2 hours. And the SIU officers that were here agreed that they were a completely toothless body. They were there to give the impression to the public that there was some oversight body of the police. There is not. This is simply a smoke and mirrors thing, I guess, where people say, oh, the SIU is investigating. Well, according to the SIU investigators that were here, they're toothless and already knew they were toothless. But they agreed they were toothless. They also said that they were not impressed in the least by the operations of the Ontario Provincial Police or any police force in this country. Okay, their job is basically to give the public the idea that there's an oversight body on the police. I talked to the commissioner's office of the OPP and the Ministry of Corrections and Safety and the Attorney General's office, and they all agree in the final end who polices the police? The police. There is no body in this nation anywhere that is above the police. The police is a separate corporate entity who polices itself. All police officers, all ministers, and so on and so forth, take an oath to serve the crown, the corporation, to serve the corporation. And they protect each other at the corporate level. That is why I say they are unaccountable. We are accountable. We are the accounts. And they are unaccountable. In other words, the accountable party is chargeable, liable, and so on and so forth, where the irresponsible party, and that's the party that took the oath to serve the Queen, which is a corporation which protects itself against us. That's why you see these ridiculous things happening in this nation. And you have these ridiculous outcomes. See, a guy's in a bathtub, he tasered him 8 times, but he died from intense cocaine abuse. Well, I don't know how a 43-year-old janitor, they certainly didn't look wealthy in the picture, can afford all this cocaine they're talking about. But regardless if he was ripped to the nines, you went in and you didn't try to help the gentleman. You didn't try to defuse the situation. You went at him with the tasers. And you didn't even have the balls to turn over your notes, because you don't have to, because that is all part of the protection racket. And you didn't give any testimony or witness statements to the SIU, because you don't have to. Anyways, the civilian watchdog's investigation included interviews with 13 civilian witnesses and 12 witness officers, a review of a 12-minute audio recording that captured the police negotiations, security footage, medical records, data from the 2 tasers used, and a post-mortem report that concluded a toxicology report. According to Lapargo of the SIU, which probes deaths, serious injuries, and allegations of sexual assault involving police in Ontario, did not immediately take over the case because Gonzalez had suffered no serious injuries that required treatment. And toxicology tests showed the presence of cocaine. The police watchdog began investigating after Gonzalez's death. According to the watchdog, police responded to a panicked and frantic 911 call that suddenly cut off. Upon entry, police could hear noise coming from the bathroom and were concerned there was a woman inside being assaulted. As such, the officers drew his gun and demanded the bathroom door be opened. There was no response. An officer was ultimately able to force the door open slightly. You can see that Gonzalez was alone, grasping a toilet lid above his head. Other officers soon arrived. According to SIU, witness told police Gonzalez had gone on a rampage, smashing everything in the apartment, and they'd apparently consumed cocaine. Toronto Police Emergency Task Force arrived because Gonzalez was barricaded. One of the ETF officers then began negotiations. When Gonzalez would not open the door, officers from the drilled a hole and told the SIU they saw him inside with blood on his hands, face, and head. Concerned he may be harming himself, police forced their way into the bathroom to arrest Gonzalez under the Ontario Mental Health Act. Now, there's another act you want to pay particular attention to. One officer holding a riot shield approached Gonzalez and claims he could see that he was holding a 4 to 6 inch screwdriver. The part noted that officers are unclear on the vital detail. Only one officer said Gonzalez was holding an object that could be used as a weapon. And that's out of, 12 officers? This sounds like the court case over Michael Schmidt's milk trial. You know, we had they had the ministry guy who was the head of the raid on the stand, and he's saying that there was 10 or 15 people in that office, and you know, one of the guys charged, you know, he's going to use. Sure, there was that many people in the office. Yes. And so he said, well, roll the video. So he rolls the video. There's like 3 people in the office. And the way the office is set up and the footage of the office, you ain't going to get 15 people in there anyways. But the office, the ministry guy who led the raid, sitting on the stand under oath, and says, "Do you see 15 people in that room?" And the guy goes, "Well, that's just a video, right?" I mean, it's over the top. Let's see. This is a riot shield. Let's see. A guy's in a bathroom in an apartment. I mean, take this picture. That bathroom will not be more than, in an apartment, an average standard bathroom is 5 by 8. So it wouldn't be, if it was a large bathroom, it would be 7 by 8, but that's still a small room. So they're here, and they got the Mental Health Act under their belt. And here we have a guy who's obviously stressed, and you come at him with tasers and shields and all the rest of this nonsense, and hit him 8 times with a taser, and he dies. And they say, well, he consumed cocaine. Well, lots of people consume cocaine, but very few people get attacked in the vicious sense this guy was attacked and tasered 8 times. But no, it was the coke he consumed. This is, this is what they call, I guess, police state. According to Lepero, an officer holding a shield raised it for protection and shoved Gonzalez backwards, causing him to land on his back in the bathtub, which had 4 to 6 inches of water in it. Gonzalez began lashing out and punching the officers. Now, let me get this straight. You're laying on your back. You've just been shoved into a bathtub. You're laying on your back. So you could walk over to the bathtub, and this guy's on his back in the tub. But no, not under these circumstances. He started punching the officers, 2 of the officers, then tasered Gonzalez a total of 8 times. Now, 8 times, water is a very good conduit of electricity, and they tasered this guy 8 times in a bathtub. My mom hit me on the bare ass when I was a kid with a fly swatter. Trust me, it hurts. I can't imagine what being tasered 8 times in water is going to be like. Then they handcuffed him, arrested him under the Mental Health Act, and took him to the hospital. So they arrested him under the Mental Health Act, not that he was causing a disturbance, not under the Police Act. He wasn't arrested under the Police Act. He was arrested under the Mental Health Act. They took him to the hospital. So there was no concerns with officer conduct until the ETF forced their way into the bathroom, but said that their conduct inside was difficult to assess because the auto recording only offers limited insight into the precise details of what happened. Whoa. Leparo also said the multiple firings of the taser while Gonzalez was wetted in a pool of water initially caused me great concern. But hey, we either put some coke in the system or we found some coke in the system, so hey, we're off the hook. However, the post-mortem report has assuaged my preliminary concerns with respect to the psychological effects of the CEW use on Gonzalez, namely that the cause of death determined to be complications of acute cocaine toxicity. According to SIU, the post-mortem report did not indicate that taser use played a role in Gonzalez's death. Well, it is worrisome that there were 8 separate discharges by 2 different tasers, some of which overlapped with one another. The evidence established that Gonzalez was able to struggle through the pain and continue to resist the officers. This will provide a basis for subsequent discharges. Not, are you okay, sir? Are you in distress, sir? Can we help you, sir? Have you consumed drugs, sir? I mean, you're in a bathroom. You ain't going anywhere. So we'll just stand outside the door here and with the door open and talk to you and try to talk you down and find out what your problem is. No, let's go get a riot shield and a pile of officers and get some tasers. Why? I got an idea. Why don't we shove this guy in the bathtub on his back and oh shit, he's in water. Wouldn't this be fun with tasers? And taser the living shit out of him. And in the end, apparently, the police have done nothing wrong. Now, where we got the watchdog's decision came the same day by the Toronto Police Services Board discussed the annual report on taser use. The report was criticized for failing to acknowledge an ongoing investigation into the death of Nabiko, 31, who died after going to medical distress when he was tasered by police in November. It doesn't say anything about him being whacked on coke, but his cause of death is unknown and is still under investigation by SIU. However, the Toronto Police report states there were no deaths directly associated with the taser used by officers in 2016. Well, what the hell has this got to do with this guy's death, which was in 2015? How could that report be filed with that sentence with it? Toronto lawyer Rosenthal asked the board in a deputation. Why didn't it say there was a death right after tasering and it's being investigated? Saunders and board chair Andy Pringles said the annual report can only include confirmed information, meaning the report will not be able to include the incident until the cause of death is conclusively found to be associated with the taser. There was no secrecy, said Saunders. We do not know the cause of death, period. And so, again, if you have someone in your family that is having a problem or your neighbor's having a problem, see, in the old days, you would get your people together and work it out and figure it out. And I just don't recommend you call a cop. It's unfortunate that this gentleman was, his wife called the. There's a picture of him. I don't know who that is. Is that a woman? We're going to say so, maybe. Here's her husband in the bed, buried in tubes, and over him hugging him, and the rest of her life, she will deal with the fact that she called someone she thought would come and help, and they came and they murdered her husband. And she's going to have to live with that the rest of her life, and that's bloody unfortunate. Meanwhile, the cops, once again, have no responsibility for what they did, and that's truly sad. But you see, you can't hold the Queen responsible here, okay? The only way the Queen can be held responsible is if the Queen agrees to be held responsible. And all of these that take the oath to the Queen have the same protection, basically. And that's bloody unfortunate because, again, that's why we have to rock the boat, because this as my good buddy Chris says, or refers to it as the cyst, and the cyst is something that grows on you. The system is upside down, and it has to be rectified. And the only ones that can possibly rectify it is us. And if we fail to do so, then we really don't have a hell of a lot to complain about. Now, I don't know. We got a few minutes before Michael's going to come on. And where is that? If I can find that again, I'm going to try and find that, because this is just more. Let me just see if I can't find this. Story here. I thought maybe it would pop up right away, but that doesn't always happen. Let me see if we can get it this way. Let's go under here. Let's see. Oh, here we are. What else we got in here? Shooting at Cincinnati nightclub kills 1, injures 15. Indonesians' taste for dog meat is growing. That's always tasty, eh? A wolf burger. Okay, I'm going to go and see what happened to these dinosaurs. Now, the interesting thing, I always like dinosaur stories, because the interesting thing about dinosaurs is there were no such thing as dinosaurs. Dinosaurs didn't exist until the mid-19th century, which was the period of Darwinism. There was no such word as dinosaur until the mid-19th century. Didn't exist. Now in the King James Bible, there's dragons, but there are no dinosaurs, and the word did not exist until the mid-19th century. So, dinosaurs have largely been grouped either into bird-hipped dinosaurs, such as whatever it's called, the group that includes whatever, and the reptile-hipped whatever, which includes the Tyrannosaurus rex and all birds. What is going on here? Let's see. See if I can get him in here today. Have I got you, Chris? Christopher.
Michael's waiting for your call.
Really?
Yeah, call him.
You call him.
You got him on yet?
No, I was waiting till the top of the hour, which we agreed to.
Okay, sorry.
Don't be sorry. And don't be a dinosaur. And don't call the police if there's somebody in trouble at your home. Don't do that either. And,
Call the damn guy.
But remember to always vote. Okay? I'm just farting around here. I'm just going to go run by this dinosaur story really fast, and I'll get Michael in here. So, okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, so what we have, I want to do this dinosaur thing, and I'll put it in there. You guys can read it if you want. But we are disagreeing with a 130-year consensus. And what's important about this really quickly is that these scientists come out and tell us some shit about dinosaurs and stuff, and then they say, oops. Well, it looks like we might have made a mistake here, a 130-year mistake. We've been propagandizing this dinosaur stuff to you for 130 years, and apparently maybe we screwed up with our data and our knowledge and our observations. And this is a very, very important. The important part is not about dinosaurs. The important part is that the scientific community is agreeing that they make shit up and they propagandize it without solid evidence. And this is very important as far as the man-made global warming nonsense, where these scientists come out and say that if we do not change our ways and you give up all your rights and live in a cave with no electricity or water or air conditioning, the earth is going to implode and it'll be your fault. And all of our data says that over the next 100 years, there's a very real possibility that the overall mean temperature could rise by 2 degrees Celsius which I think is 1.22 degrees Fahrenheit. And in doing so, the entire world will cease to exist, and all life on the planet will disappear. Now, that is an absolutely ludicrous statement, but they still manage through this idea of science and propaganda to get people to accept this nonsense. And that's why I brought up David Suzuki at the beginning of this thing, saying that, stuff he was told 20 years ago, just like don't eat eggs are bad for you, and 20, 30 years later, they say, oops, our mistake. So, don't trust science is what I'm saying. Never, ever, ever, ever trust science, okay? Because science, after, what was that guy's name that said to kill God, Netsky or whatever his name was, the scientists were brought in as the new priests because they said unless they killed God, they could not bring forth ecology, okay, which is the cult worship of the creation and not the creator. So trust a scientist, you're an asshole and a fool. Trust your gut, people. Let your gut, not propaganda, be your guide. And that's all I got to say on that matter. Now, I guess it's time to bring Michael in. And I'm really looking forward to this. I hope he's had a very nourishing meal. And we'll bring him in and introduce him and see where we go.
Hello, Ron.
Hello, Michael. How are you, my friend?
I'm okay. I'm wined and dined.
I hope you've had a wonderful dinner. And
yes, I did.
And I'm absolutely certain that your mate, your wife, is a very lovely woman.
She is indeed. I'll marry the best ones.
And they put up with us doing what we do, and without them, I think we wouldn't do as well as we do. So hats off to our ladies. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, and so welcome aboard. And we're going to talk today. Just before we get going, Mike, I mentioned this earlier. You're still writing for Renegade Tribune, right?
Yeah, not as much as I used to because I have to look after the personal finances, and it doesn't play politics. So radical politics, dissident politics doesn't.
Yeah. So you're concentrating on your books, and how many books have you written? I went through a list. You seem to be a very prolific writer.
39.
39.
Yep.
Well, and I don't have an excuse, do I? I was trying to get a lawyer, which I'm off the lawyer. It seems that I'm not allowed to have a lawyer. And I was sitting in a lawyer's office one day, and he looked at me and he said, "Ron, I can't help you." Then he looked at me, he paused, and he said, "Write the book." And,
right.
So, yeah, and it's very difficult to find any free time. But I do. If you wrote 39, God, surely I can write one.
Yeah, I'm a natural writer, and I think the fastest was I produced a book in 8 days from blank paper to nothing to a book that was on sale on Amazon in 8 days. So not bad, huh?
Well, see, but this is the thing, I've never considered myself a writer. I can get by on it, but I do believe that if I just work myself through one, it's like building a house. The first house you build is more difficult because you just don't know all the nuances and stuff, right?
That's right.
And then if you work away at it, you get very prolific at it, which we did. So I shall make an attempt to find some time to write a book. Then you can call me, and I'll be on your show, and we'll talk about my book. It'll be great. But anyways, is this your latest book, the Trotsky's White Negroes?
I think it is. I'm not absolutely sure. I churn them out so fast, I don't really keep a record of them, but it's certainly the most popular book that I've ever penned. And I just checked the figures before we came on the show, Ron, and it's actually outselling Witness to History, which has always been the bestseller.
Outselling which?
Witness to History.
Okay, that's your book as well, right?
Yeah, Witness to History has been around for a long time. It's been around about 30 years. It's been plagiarized. It's been pirated and all the rest of it. It's a very, very good book, very popular. And it's a staple. It's a staple book from year to year to year. And there's 4 volumes of it. There's also the large volume of everything in, which is quite expensive, actually. I think it's about $56, but it does sell reasonably well. But because I realized that very, very few people can put their hand in the pocket and produce $56 for a book, I broke it down into 4 volumes too, so that they can buy volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then they have the entire book in 4 volumes. And they sell as well. So you've got 5 titles in all. So, but even Trotsky's White Negroes is outselling them all.
And how old is that book?
Trotsky's White Negroes?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's not that old. It's only about 6 months. I don't think it's
so it's
quite
very
new.
recent. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But as a matter of fact, the one thing about writing books and selling books is it's totally unpredictable, Ron. You could say this is going to be a bestseller, and you're proven wrong. And you can say, well, this isn't going to sell too good, but at least I'm getting it off my chest. I want it out there. At least I want it available. And Trotsky's White Negroes is one of them. I had my arm twisted to produce this book, and I must admit, I was certainly half-hearted about it. But it is a really financially viable book. If all of the books were selling as well as Trotsky's White Negroes, then I wouldn't have to pivot to ghostwriting for the commercial market.
Yeah. Now, why did you title it that?
Because
it's a very rare title.
Yeah, it's not my inspiration, actually. Trotsky's White Negroes is what he described as the whites, the Orthodox Christian Gentiles who were consigned to the Gulag. And, he wanted the Gulag to stretch from the Baltic Sea to the Bering Straits, 8,000 miles of Soviet-occupied Russia. And all of these camps, there were several hundred of them, I seem to remember, they were populated by the white people who were vacuumed up from all over the Soviet Union, from the Baltic states, from Finland. Even Americans ended up in there. They fell on the wrong side of the border during the mess of the Second World War. So a lot of Americans were enslaved and died, as did Britons. They went to the Gulag too, and nobody ever heard of them again. And I do recall that during the Korean War, in which the British and the Americans were very, very much involved, and I think the Canadians, a lot of them were taken prisoner by the Koreans, and we never saw them again because they were shipped off to Stalin's Gulag.
You think they were shipped off there?
Oh, absolutely no case about it. I've got a newspaper cutting somewhere. Obviously, I can't lay my hands on it right now. It's in a drawer across the room here. But yeah, there was a newspaper cutting about the Allied servicemen who were captured by the Koreans during the Korean War, and they ended up in the Gulag. So these were what Trotsky described, Leon Trotsky, the Jewish revolutionary. These are what he described as white Negroes, and that's where the title came from.
And so that kind of goes back to the Jewish
absolutely
notation that we are servants of theirs.
We're cattle. We're cattle. We're sheep to be fleeced, and till we die. We have no value as workers, and there was absolutely, and this is the tragedy of it, and this is what people read about on Trotsky's White Negroes. If they go to spinfreehistory.com, Spin-Free History, all being one word, spinfreehistory.com, they will see Trotsky's White Negroes on there, and it is absolutely revelatory. And I think this is one of the popular things is people tend to think that the United States, the West, was hostile to Bolshevism. But in actual fact, Bolshevism was sustained right from the very beginning in 1917 by the West. It was a Western inspiration, it was a Wall Street inspiration, and Bolshevism would never have survived if it had not been for the input from the Ford Motor Company, from General Electric, from Harvester, from Studebaker. They all benefited from the Gulag. As a matter of fact, the Gulag couldn't have existed without the West, because the Gulag, all that Stalin, during his 5-year plans, Ron, all that he provided was slaves for what was Western corporate concerns. So these huge dams and the other things for which Stalin takes the credit, huge canals that spanned the Soviet system, they were built by slave labor, but all of the material that was necessary, such as the heavy lifting equipment and all of it, it was all supplied by the West. None of it was made in the Soviet Union. So it was a partnership, if you like. Bolshevism was a partnership between the capitalist West. Bolshevism provided the white Negroes, and it was the West that provided the banking, the funds for it, and for the equipment. The Neprotovsk Dam on the Dnieper River. That was the biggest dam in the world at the time, but it couldn't have been built without Canadian and United States expertise and the hardware.
Well, I was reading a thing the other night, and I didn't get to look into it as deep as I wanted to, but I knew that Trotsky had been in Canada, and I found a piece where he was held in an internment camp in, I think it was Nova Scotia, where they had 800 and some German soldiers. They got off a boat somewhere at the same time, and that Trotsky was just using these German soldiers as somewhere to speak to. And what I was reading at the end there was that he wanted out because he wanted to get to Russia, and the people in Canada who had him didn't want to let him go. And somewhere through either speaking to embassies or whatever, he got sprung loose, and in 3 weeks later, he was in the upper echelon of the Russian government.
You're absolutely right. The Canadian government provided him with a passport. So in what way, by what stretch of the imagination is Leon Trotsky Canadian? In what way was he an American or French? Because these guys just don't need. You need a passport to travel around. You need a visa to travel around. But Trotsky and the rest of the revolutionaries, they just went from one country to another, just as you jump on a bus in, your location. That's what they did. They didn't have any problems. I know a very good friend of mine who's just been denied access to Britain, despite the fact that she is married to a British citizen. The vetting is that strict. But the likes of Trotsky, people like these, they were mercenaries. They were political mercenaries. They were being paid for by Jacob Schiff and the Wall Street banking empire. And these were sent into Imperial Russia for the express purpose of overthrowing a legitimate, democratically elected government, which was, of course, Tsarist Russia. And they tried the same ever since. They've done the same in Syria, they've done the same in Libya, in Iraq. They claim that their revolutions are not revolutions at all. They're the overthrow of sovereign states by the United States. And, let's not just blame, and I say this to my many, many friends in the Baltic states, don't blame Stalin for what happened, because Stalin, there was nothing, absolutely nothing that Stalin did that he could have done without the support of the West.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify something, because I found that 16-page PDF with the overview of the white Negroes, and it was like, I'm thinking American people are not going to take this well because it's pointing the finger at the United States. And I want the American people to understand that America the nation, which is the people, is not in any way the United States.
No.
Okay? The United States is a financial corporate entity, and that has totally deceived the men and women of the nation, just like Canada is a corporation and everywhere else a corporation. So this is. But can we agree that you know, it always killed me because, you know, say Canada is founded on Judeo-Christian values. Well, I'm thinking, wait a minute here, the Judeo values and the Christian values are like legal and law; they're opposites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is where the propaganda or the mixing of the word, I guess they call it word magic, to deceive the people. Yeah, we're run by, you can correct me again, but from my studies, and I don't pick on anybody, and it's not that I dislike anybody, and it's not that I would dislike an individual Jew or an individual anybody. It's the leadership that is always the problem. But you know, this whole thing, the money system set up by the Jews, and they want total control. And in order to get the control, the capitalists who set up the money system, which were the Jews, use that to take down countries like Russia. And then Russia went from being Russia to the Soviet Union. Now you just got to take the one more step, and what do you got? You got the European Union. Same background, same stuff's going on here.
Well, it was Mikhail Gorbachev, if I may interject here, it was Mikhail Gorbachev, the last president of the Soviet Union, who said, well, why is the European Union trying to do exactly the same as the Soviet Union? You know, all they did when the Berlin Wall fell down is they pushed us all inside it. And the ridiculous thing is now is the unbelievable is happening is the people in the West are fleeing to Russia. Now, who would have predicted that in the 1980s? You know, my children were born in the mid-1980s, and, you know, my wife and I, we discussed it when she was in the initial stages of being pregnant. We said, this is an awful world we're bringing our children into because, you know, they were facing each other down with intercontinental ballistic missiles at the time. And, you know, we had our doubts. We were getting on in years, and we had our doubts as to whether we should be bringing children into this very vulnerable situation that we lived in. But with the passage of time, if anybody had said to me in 1983, 1984, that the time will come when people in the West are opting for citizenship in Russia, not Soviet Union, a totally different thing, then, you know, it would have been regarded as absolutely ludicrous. But, you know, though technically speaking, Ukraine, the biggest country in Europe, is in the Western Bloc. I think there are over 2 million Ukrainians who have fled from Ukraine into Vladimir Putin's Russia. That's how bad things have become in the West.
Yeah, that to me is one country that over history has been beaten up and destroyed so many times, the Ukraine.
Yes.
And I don't understand. You know, we're trying to raise you know, I'm trying to tell people that we're in a spiritual psychological war, and that they need to you know, strengthen their spirits, their minds, and their spines. And you know, when I look over at the Ukraine and the history, it just sickens me. As to what happened to those people over and over and over. And what does it take for the rest of us to open our eyes and see how this thing operates?
Yeah, you got a population of 40 million. It's the biggest country in Europe. And people say that 7 million people died in the Holodomor, which is the Ukrainian Holocaust. They were starved to death. Right. As a government policy. In actual fact, Stalin conceded to Winston Churchill that it was 10 million. Not 7 million, and there was not just one Holodomor, there were several Holodomors, there were several Holocausts, and the population of Ukraine now, for its size and its position and its expertise and all of the other qualities that I have, remember that before the Bolshevik overthrow of Imperial Russia, Ukraine was known as the breadbasket of Europe. That's how prosperous that wonderful country was. The population today of Ukraine is about 44 million. In actual fact, that today should be much larger than Germany's, much larger than Britain's. The population of Ukraine is 5 times the size of England. It should have a population probably in the region of 144 million, not 44 million. Because remember, at all of these generations who died, most of those who died during these starvations, deliberate government starvation, they would have gone on to produce children, and those children would have produced the children that we have now. So it's a knock-on effect, Ron. And as I say, the size of taking all things into account, natural population growth, Ukraine now should have a population of about 144 million. Instead, it's only got a population of 44 million, thanks to Wall Street-backed Bolshevism. The Russia, which is 8,000 miles and is so big that you would almost lose the United States if you dropped it on Russia, geographical Russia. The Russian population is about 144 million, which is nothing. It really is. It's probably the same as Germany and France for a country that size. And the population of Russia today should be round about 400 million. But there you are. This is the ravages of Bolshevism.
This is like this country. We have 34 million population thereabouts. We're the second largest landmass country on the planet next to Russia.
Yep.
And, I thought Russia had a population of 250, but that would have been the Soviet Union, right?
No, it was much reduced over the Bolshevik occupation of Russia, which, of course, lasted 70 years. But I've got the figures somewhere, and I do think that actually in Trotsky's White Needles or in Megacost is another great seller on spinfreehistory.com. But the number of churches that were destroyed and the number of Orthodox Christians who lost their lives in a variety of ways was absolutely horrifying.
So in your Trotsky's White Negroes, this is basically a history book. Shining the light on things that we were taught in school and that were absolutely incorrect.
That's right.
Am I close on that?
Yep.
And everybody needs to know these things. When there's a piece in there about Winston Churchill. When I was a kid, Winston Churchill would stand up because these people. The only thing you ever knew about these people were these little sound bites that were put through the propaganda machines, right? Mm-hmm. And what a great man. Well, you read Winston Churchill and you understand Winston Churchill. If he was alive, you'd want to punch him in the head or worse. And this is how badly deceived we've been. So when we have historians like yourself that sit down and painstakingly, kind of peel the onion back sort of thing, so that people can. Because you got to have you got to be grounded, right, in order to move forward. You have to have a solid base of knowledge and information before you move forward so that you don't get deceived at every corner you turn on. And I think
the reality is from a historian, a truthful historian's point of view, is that we know that Stalin was directly or indirectly responsible for something like 70 to 100 million deaths. But the truth of the matter is that he couldn't have done it without Winston Churchill, and either indirectly or directly, Winston Churchill was responsible for a similar number of deaths. Now, it was independent analysis that found that during the 20th century, Ron, 170 million people had been killed by government. Now, where does your 6 million, and that's a highly questionable figure, where does that stand against that? Since 1945, the United States has been responsible not for the deaths of 6 million, but 30 million. Nobody's talking about those holocausts and the multiple holocausts that have resulted in 30 million dead as a direct consequence of Washington, D.C., not America, The American people are not responsible, of course.
Right.
It is the policies of their government, and it is the policies of their government that United States citizens, tourists, who are going to London and Berlin, and people like that, we can't tell the difference between a Canadian accent and an American accent. And they're passing themselves off as Canadian because the Americans, because of their damned government, are very unpopular around the world, and they're passing themselves off as Canadians so that they can avoid the flag.
Well, I'm going to write the government. They're going to put a tax on American travelers now who are putting themselves off as Canadians. But okay, I understand. I think the idea of the white Negro, and I didn't realize that was something that Trotsky had actually said, and that's quite demeaning.
Oh, absolutely.
That we are the cattle, and this is again where I say that these people they're amoral people, because you can't go out and kill 60 million people and show no remorse for it. So this is.
They gloated over it.
I know, but but they put themselves above us, and we're cattle or
right.
animals. We're animals, and who has remorse over killing an animal, and that's why they never show any remorse, and that's why they can go into a peaceful country and just start dropping bombs on everybody and show absolutely no remorse, and so this whole if I can move forward a little bit. Now, my conclusion on what's going on today with this migration, which every country is a member state of the United Nations and are obligated to fulfill the contracts that they have agreed with the United Nations, which is one of them is migration. And we have everybody here bitching and complaining about their politicians. We're going to vote you out because you're letting in all these migrants. And trying to explain to them it has nothing to do with the politics. It has to do with the fact that you're a member state of the United Nations, and you are contracted to do what you've agreed to do through international law. Now, looking back in history, as we bombed, not us, but the countries, the corporations, whatever, bombed all of these eastern countries, Iraq and Iran, or not Iran, but Afghanistan and all of these places, was all in the process to build this movement of migrants. I was reading that in some of these camps, people have been there 30 years. In other words, they were born and had families in these camps, and they were told that this is America, it's the West that's done this to you. And Billy said we built a huge infantry to flood into our nations, and we have this we know how the propaganda and the false flags work, but from my looking at this, and they're saying, the Muslims want to kill the Jews. I'm saying, hold the phone here. This is a Jewish instigated invasion because they're using these guys as the foot soldiers to come in and destroy our nations. Now, I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but everything I've looked at and everything I've studied, and studying Russia and Trotsky and all these guys to a certain extent, it would seem this is just a continuation of the botulism or Bolshevism, or whatever you want to call it, that is being spread across the world as the Jews try to build a nation, world nation. Am I even close on any of this?
You're absolutely close. And the analogy that I would use is we all know, whoever we are, wherever we are, we all know how a sheepdog works. It terrifies the sheep, it rounds them up, and it drives them into the pens where it wants them to be. And this is precisely what NATO is doing. When it bombs all of these North African nations, like Libya, and when they bomb the Middle Eastern countries, it terrifies the sheep, and the sheep all flee into the European pen. So NATO, thank you very much, you guys. You're doing a wonderful job. You're not fighting to defend Europe at all. You are fighting to occupy Europe. and it is not the ethnic Europeans who will do the occupation. Every one of you really should be put up against the wall because you are treasonous in what you are doing. Colonel Gaddafi, before he was assassinated by you guys, because you guys were responsible for it, he warned that if you removed him and his peaceful government, his peaceful system, then Europe would be overrun by he described it as millions of sub-Saharans all over Europe. And what did NATO do? They went in, they overthrew Colonel Gaddafi to destroy a very peaceful government, and exactly what Colonel Gaddafi said happened. So thank you very much, every one of you who served in NATO. You are responsible. It is not Colonel Gaddafi, it is not President Assad, it is none of these people. You are the people who are responsible for the flooding of Europe, because you are the miserable sheepdogs that terrified and bombed to destruction all of these countries and drove their terrified people into Europe. So you take a bow, because every single one of you are traitors, and you should be treated as traitors.
Thank you very much for that. And it's absolutely correct. And you know, I don't know what it takes for the people. You know, we have a country, and I've always said that this country, being such a small population in such a large country, and it was our, and it's the same thing for America and Australia. It was our forefathers that left their countries to seek freedom. And they were very tough people. They weren't fearful people. They did things that the people today would be so afraid to do: go into the unknown, and with no supplies, and try to build something. But I'm a firm believer that the blood of our forefathers is still coursing through our veins, and that we just need to ignite that. And we do not need violence. We just need to stand, and we can put this to a very quick end. But like you said, they are the trick is to keep the people in a state of fear. And they have been running to the government to protect them, which is running to the wolf, and asking the wolf to protect them, which is really not that bright. But I do believe that you know, we're going to beat this back. Although I did see a news report yesterday from a year or so ago that stated that Toronto, Canada, has the largest faction of Muslims anywhere in North America. So they're really building a base in this country, and it has to get stopped. And we have to quit kowtowing to these politicians. This idea of, well, we'll vote him out in 2019 and vote the next one out. You got to understand, your country is a member state of the United Nations and does their bidding. So the only way you're going to stop this is to find a politician that says on categorically that elected, we are no longer members of the United Nations. And then maybe we can do something. But as long as people keep playing this stupid right-left game, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think after a period, after an election, of course, they make their promises before all individuals and governments. They set out their agendas, and we vote accordingly. But there's not a single one of them that will keep to their agenda or will keep to their promises. So we really need to go back to the original concept of democracy. And that is that they set out what they intend to do and what they intend not to do according to the will of the people. And never mind your 5 years in 2019 or 2027 or anything of that nature, if after 12 months a percentage of those promises made have been broken, then this should kickstart a fresh election. And it is only when politicians are made to keep their promises by the people, and there is a system in place to do that, then you're going to get change. But a politician now, he just goes in and he says anything that he wants, because he knows that if we are foolish enough to be taken in by this double-crossing, double-glazing window salesman who promises us the earth. He knows that he is in 5 years and he can do what he wants. And the lobbyists, they vote every day. We only get the chance to vote for these creeps once every 5 years. But the lobbyists are in the arms industry and the pharmaceutical industries and the traitors funded by Soros. They are applying pressure to the members of parliament, to the congressmen and all the rest of the parliamentarians every single day. As you and I are talking now, politicians are having their arms twisted. They're being fed brandy and fine meals, and we don't even come into any consideration because we will be voting for them, and we will be like the sheep. We will be foolish enough to go out and vote for them again. We really are monks.
Well, we I say we deserve what we get, really, because, and I like your analogy there. You see, we have people here. Well, let's go down to Ottawa or Toronto or somewhere, and we'll get some protest sign. We'll protest. And I said, well, that's what they like you to do. It shows your stupidity, because while you're down there protesting, they're sitting there having a cognac and a nice cigar with a very wealthy industrialist doing business, and you fools are out there whining like little children, and you're not going to accomplish anything that way ever.
No, it's a pretty. You've got to change the system before you're going to change anything. Otherwise, you're just going to get. If you keep on putting too much salt into the pot, and you're going to get a very salty dinner. And this is precisely what they're doing. They've got to stop pouring salt into it.
Yeah,
it's not rocket. It's not rocket science, is it, Ron? The entire rotten system is rotten. So it's not the MPs. When you set out a system that automatically attracts the most corrupt people on earth, then you're going to get what Al Capone said is a criminal syndicate, and that's what capitalism is. It's a criminal syndicate.
It is, exactly. And when I was, I don't want to get off subject too far, but when I was talking to the senior policy advisor over this new energy system that anybody that had a clue knew was a fraud. But when I talked to him and I said, do you see, and I was talking about the head of the wind industry at the time, he says, well, don't want to say anything in particular about any one person, but let me put it this way. As of late, there have been an awful lot of very seedy looking characters running in and out of the minister's office, right? Yep. So this is what goes on. You say, well, I voted for so-and-so. Well, most people have no clue what the issues are in the first place. So, all you're doing is in carte blanche to open the door to the next load of criminals.
Yeah, the entire system is corrupt. Now, going back to Tony Blair being elected the very first time, it was about 1980, 1990. Who knows? Who cares? But he was said to have been so popular that he got in on a landslide vote. This was what they were saying. In actual fact, Tony Blair was elected by 22% of the people. In other words, 78% of the people didn't vote for either Tony Blair or his Labour government. So how is a guy who only gathers 20%, 22% of the vote said to be the Prime Minister? I always thought that, my maths is not that good, but I always thought that if you got only 22% of the vote and 78% of the people voted against you, then I think that you lose.
Well, but you're talking about normal life. We were talking about politics here, right?
Exactly. It's as bent as a dog's back leg. All of them. They're all as bent as a dog's back leg.
And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, and we just keep going, because when you look at what happened in Russia in your book, and you look what happened since. I always say that they have templates on the shelf, right? And they just have a template for whatever it is they want to do. Yep. And they just, they say, how come, you wonder why history repeats itself. Well, they got a closet full of templates.
Yes.
Well, this worked. We'll pull that template again, and we'll put some different information in it, but it's the same template, right? Yep. And away we go again. And people have to come to to the realization and be able to spot this stuff in order to deal with it. We're really kind of a hapless bunch of children, aren't we, that are always being offered something for nothing, if we vote for this particular man or woman without any thought process. It's like, oh, I want the candy, I want the candy, I want the candy. And then the one that offered you candy turns out not to be such a nice.
I like the way you put it, Ron, because I think we've discussed it before, is what politics is, whether it's in Britain or Germany, Canada or the United States. It's a Punch and Judy show. I think you Canadians know what a Punch and Judy is.
Yes.
It's Punch and Judy. Punch is the husband, Judy is the wife, and they knock hell out of each other. And one of them is going to be victorious, and half of the kids are shouting for Judy, and half of the kids are shouting for Punch. Mm-hmm. And everybody's happy in the end, but nobody can see the hand in the glove puppets, because that's what the Labour Party is, and all of your parties over there. They're glove puppets. They're not controlling them. For goodness sake, even prime ministers and presidents have conceded that they are only figureheads, that they don't actually run anything. This has been known for 150 years. The kind of people who actually run the system, we don't know their names. And these are only puppets. So whether you call it the Democrats or the Republicans or the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, we're talking Punch and Judy. Now, when we're children, we go along to see the Punch and Judy show. And we bay and we cry and we support and we do all the rest of it for Punch or for Judy. When we get a little bit older, but no wiser, what do? Instead of voting for Punch and Judy, we vote for Democrat or Republican or Labour Party or Tory. But we're just idiots who are voting for these parties.
When I looked up the word party in etymology, it was like one of those moments. It said to divide.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we have always two main parties. There's peripheral parties, off to the side and that, but there's only two real games here, right and left. And it keeps the population divided. The population can never come together if it's, and like you said, it's Punch and Judy, right and left. And part of the population is right, part of the population is left, and it's propaganda played to their particular mindset. And how can you ever bring a nation together when the nation is constantly divided? And they just take advantage of that.
It's not possible. I think, and I remember reading one passage in Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf in which he said that during the Weimar Republic, there were 33 different political parties, all claiming to fight each other. And of those 33, 29 of them were led by Jews. So, it's all Punch and Judy. Now, it's probably the same in Britain. I talk about the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, but in actual fact, there's, I don't know, I don't count them, and I'm not really interested in that form of so-called democracy. But there's probably about 20, 30 different parties who are vying for power in Britain. Probably the same in Canada, probably the same in the United States. But we tend to focus on the two main ones, the Punch and Judy, instead of the supporting cast. But we should have a united nation in which Canadians, regardless of their religion, if they're ethnic Europeans, it is their country by right. They've established their right to it, just as the white South Africans did from the 16th century, would you believe? The whites have been in South Africa for 500 years. They were there long before most of the blacks and those who inherited from the blacks, and they have every right to that country. The Canadian ethnic Europeans who settled and created a great nation out of Canada, they should be the ones who are deciding through honest politicians the direction in which Canada goes.
Yeah, and that's where we have just a lot of teaching to do. Now, you're originally from Britain, right?
Yes, I'm one of those strange characters. I'm a European. People say, well, what are you, Mike? And I say, well, you tell me. I was born in England of Irish parents, so I've got Irish nationality. I live in Spain, but my heart is in the Baltic states. And I just love mainland Europe. So what am I? I'm an ethnic European.
Yeah, but this is interesting because I just wanted to touch on this with you. I met a gentleman, I mentioned that when we were talking earlier before the show. I met a gentleman at the court who's 78 years old, and asked me if I knew anything, and I said, so yeah, and then he hit me with his cane, told me to sit down and listen. And so he asked me when we were talking if I'd ever heard of the Orangemen. And I said, yeah, I studied them some. I said, I thought they were defunct. I said, actually, my uncle was an Orangeman, and he's still alive. He's 89 now. And he says from Shawville. Well, and Shawville is a very small town of maybe, I don't know, 2,000 people, just on the Quebec side of the Ontario border. And I thought that was rather odd that he would bring that name up, or that town up, but I guess they used to do a lot of Orangemen. Then this is again about history. So when we were coming back from the courthouse, the gentleman I was driving with, he said to me, "Your uncle used to kill my people." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, the Orangemen were in Ireland." And I said, "Yeah, I have a small amount of Irish blood in me, but basically, I think most of our family's from England." But I said that was the Punch and, I don't know if it was the Punch and Judy show or not, because the Roman Catholics were not supposed to be in England, and after Henry VIII took him down and gave him a spanking, then everything changed. So the Church of England actually became the Catholic Church at that point. So, you know, I got to go to this meeting next Saturday where this gentleman's going to be. And you're a historian. Was this scrap, and you're basically Irish, or well acquainted with Ireland? Is this just was the Orange?
Yeah, that's right.
That was the Protestant faction, right?
Yeah.
Is that just another Punch and Judy show?
It is just another Punch and Judy show, and it's absolutely ridiculous that ethnic Europeans who go to a Protestant church are killing ethnic Europeans who go to a Catholic church. Now, this is pretty much barbarism, and I've argued for decades, not just for years, as we are superior as ethnic Europeans. We are superior in many respects, but that does not make us the equals to anybody. And as a matter of fact, it makes people who are not as intellectually smart as we are superior to us. The Jewish ethnic group, for instance, they don't have any of the qualities that the ethnic Europeans had. I think it was Adolf Hitler who pointed out that there's not a single synagogue in the world that has been built by Jewish labor. It is all have been built by Gentile labor. And this is a point, is that although they are the smallest ethnic group worth talking about in England, they are controlling 100 billion Europeans, ethnic Europeans, 1 billion ethnic Europeans, and much of the rest of the world. So just who is superior here? The white race has got absolutely no right to regard themselves as superior, because in many respects, the Africans show greater unity than do the whites. And I think it was George Lincoln Rockwell who said that the Africans come to the United States, they come to wherever they go, wherever they settle in the world. The African is first an African and a second a United States or a Canadian citizen. It's the same for the Jew. The Jew settles anywhere in the world. First of all, he is a Jew, and second, he's an American or a Canadian or a German or whatever the case may be. Their ethnicity comes before them, except for the ethnic Europeans. No, they divide themselves, and so we have the ethnic Europeans of the United States, the ethnic Europeans of Canada killing the ethnic Europeans of Germany and Bulgaria.
Okay, and that goes back to the Punch and Judy of the Orangemen and of the battle between the Protestants and the Catholics. And again, I believe that it is the leaders who deceive their people, who get their people to fight against each other, because those at the top are on the same side.
Yep, they are.
Yeah.
You know, you were told in North America, you were told for decades, you know, I certainly was, and I'm getting on in years, is that capitalism was diametrically opposed to Bolshevism. It was only when I started studying as a historian that I realized, as Adolf Hitler had pointed out, they're two sides of the same coin. And so the Bolshevism would never have existed without capitalist support, and it was brought into being through capitalism, and it was maintained. And when in 1942 Bolshevik occupied Russia, where the Bolsheviks were on the ropes, and you know that far away from total destruction. It was only the aid that was rushed to them by the United States and by Britain that saved Bolshevism. And Bolshevism festered on the face of the earth as a cancer for another 45 years. So I would say to you, you Canadians, you Americans, your war finished in 1945. The war never finished for the people of Russia and the people of Central and Eastern Europe until 1990. Their war went from 1939 to 1990, and it's your fault. Don't put the blame on Stalin. Don't put the blame on Bulgarin or any of these. They were all your people who were leading the Soviet Union.
Yeah, we facilitated everything bad that's ever happened to us. And we have to rise above that. We have to rise above the propaganda that we've been sucked into. And that's why I say, you know, there's a saying that World War I was the first Red Scare and World War II was the second Red Scare. And I said the Third World War, which is a spiritual psychological war, began the day, well, actually began long before the Second World War ended, but we just take an end there. And this is the Third World War, which is a spiritual psychological war. And this one we have to win.
Yeah, this could be Armageddon because you know the First World War it sawed off hundreds, something like 100 million Europeans and a lot of Europeans. The Second World War it decimated, and Bolshevism, of course, it decimated Central Europe, it decimated Russia, and it decimated Germany. All of the population dramatically dropped. The population, we were talking before about what the population of Russia should be. It should be in the region of about 350, 400 million. We talked about the population of Ukraine, which is 44 million and should be 144 million. The population of Europe now should be at least double what it is. And it's going down. It is the only ethnic group in the world that is losing fast. We're only 8% of the world's population. So it is the ethnic Europeans, we whites, who are the minority. And we're going to go the same way as the Native Americans, as the Incas and the Aztecs and the Maoris and the Aborigines. We're going to go the same way. We're just going to end up as Trotsky's white niggers.
And that's that. I just don't want to butt in on you, but that's exactly the conversation I had with a Native woman at a reserve one time when I asked her. I said, "Do you understand the plan for Whitey?" Meaning everybody else is not Native, and she just looked at me and nodded her head, yes. And I said, "Why do you get it so easy?" And Whitey is like talking to him, like beating your head against the wall. She said, "Simple. We lived through it. Now it's your turn." And that blew me away. Right? That was so bang in my face, and
Yep.
so true. Now, have you got time for a call? We got like 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
I have a gentleman here who I think you know, who is a huge fan of yours, rightfully so. You're a very important guy who's given us a lot of good information, and I encourage everyone. Do you have a website where your books are loaded that people can purchase them, or you just go to Amazon?
Yeah, very easy.
They need the titles of your books. Where are those stashed at?
They're all at Spin Free History. That's
Okay.
3 words, all one word. Sorry to sound Irish there, but spinfreehistory.com.
Okay, people write that down, spinfreehistory.com. Go check out Michael's work. And, have we got you, Chris?
Yeah, be my friend. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing, my friend? Are you well? Family?
Doing as well as we can under the circumstances.
You're a survivor. One day you'll get compensation, Chris.
Yeah. Well, you and I have become known to each other in recent past, and you have been working very hard since the '60s I have not become intelligent in about the 2000s, and I love having you on this show. I love having you on any show, and I've listened to you on others. But I had a couple of brief questions. I don't know if we're gonna have enough time for them.
Well, get them out.
Well, okay. Well, I guess to do this quick, Mike.
Yep.
There was a book on Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf.
Yep.
And it's my understanding that many of the versions have been bastardized through translation. Is there one true translation that we can actually get that book?
Yeah, the translation, and my memory has gone, I'm afraid. If you were to name the couple of the main, I would remember it is an Irish name, I seem to recall. But that was the one that was officially sanctioned by the National Socialist government. And it's a very, very popular one, and you won't have any problems with it. It's a very, very good read. And I also say to people, Chris, is don't think that it's a dry tome, like Das Kapital is. It's a very, very entertaining and inspiring read in Mein Kampf. Are you there?
That's yeah. No, that's the one that people got to search, because I've looked at a couple of others that the translation doesn't seem to be correct as to what Hitler himself was trying to say in the book. So there was definitely another influence, if not rewording, by another entity, and so that's it's important that people understand that if you're reading Mein Kampf, don't necessarily believe what you're reading until you can research the source for yourself.
Yeah, I wish I'd anticipated this question, and perhaps it might be an idea if some of the questions are asked in the beginning of the program, so it can give us a few moments to figure it out. But if somebody was to ring in now, or you guys yourself can quickly remember the two main editions, one of them is the one that was sanctioned by the National Socialist government. So there was no problem with it. So Mein Kampf is a very, very good read. And, do grab a copy and read between your lines if you need to be. But, you go for it.
You got another question, Chris?
Yeah, I thought we had 2 hours with you, Mike, but you had to eat apparently, and time.
It wasn't our fault. There's apparently in this global world, we're still not synchronizing our clocks. That's where the problem came from. But we'll do this again someday. What else you got, Chris?
Well, it's been brought to my by the British Interior Minister Amber Rudd. You're familiar with her?
Mike? Yeah. Honorable woman.
Yeah. There's no room for end-to-end encryption. This was said from her Crystal Tower after the alleged car-driven terrorist attack on March 22nd, aka the 322 Skull and Bones attack.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So now we have the motive for this false flag event. Just to take out our
opinion on it.
Yeah.
I think
if one cannot protect their intellectual property, one not give the world their ideas, right? So okay, so you, Michael, now have a intellectual property to share with the world, and it seems that there's no well, I don't know. It seems that there's those that seek to silence you.
We're dissidents. We're the same souls.
Does it mean that the government gets to see everything, and from that decide what will and what will not be heard?
Okay, let Michael get in on this because we only got a couple minutes left.
Okay, the translator, the official translation, I was just looking that up as we were talking there, is the one I was trying to remember. There is a James Murphy edition. There's nothing wrong with the James Murphy edition, so go get yourself a copy. It is the second biggest selling book. Mein Kampf is the second biggest selling book in the world, the first one being the Holy Bible. But if anybody goes to Renegade Tribune, they will see my latest story there, A Nation Called Absurdistan, and it will show you just to the extent to which British people have been betrayed by that foul political elite that is mismanaging the country. The country has been basically hijacked by a corrupt elite. So has your country, I'm sorry to say. And these people have got to be removed. So yes, Chris, you're absolutely right. And the answer to your question is in the current edition of Renegade Tribune, a nation called Absurdistan. That's England.
And this really is the Orwellian,
absolutely,
end game kind of thing where you can't move without being observed, and that's not what we were put on this earth to become.
No, I believe that the Windows 10 now, the Microsoft latest Windows 10, which everybody has because it has to have very, very soon, everything that you write will automatically go to the CIA and everything else. So you may as well have a CIA agent standing next to you as you're writing your letters, because that is how intensive the surveillance is. We really are living in an Orwellian nightmare, and it's got to be stopped.
Yes, we do need to stop it, and people need to strengthen their minds, spines, and spirits, and we can take it, and we can undo it. And, it makes me ill, to even think about it. 34 million people in a country this size of Canada. You can put England in here 4 times, which is 240 million people, and still have all kinds of room. And that's just not in Canada. That's just in the province of Ontario. This is a huge country, and yet we have people who are homeless, hungry, can't clothe themselves properly, and so on. There is no excuse for this, people.
No excuse.
All of these problems we brought upon ourselves, and we're the ones who are going to have to fix the problem. Period. That's where the responsibility lies. It's in our hands, and what we do with it will give us the outcome, either negative or positive.
You bet. So,
anyway,
nations are being in far worse situations than ours. So let's not be too.
No, we don't want to be negative about it. We want to be very positive about it and understand that we have the power, not the politicians. We have the power.
Sure.
We just have to assert that power, and it doesn't have to be violent. Anyways, Michael, I want to thank you so very much. It would have been beautiful to have you on for 2 hours, but we had that little time problem. But again, it's nospinhistory.com, correct?
No. Spin-free history.
Excuse me, spinfreehistory.com.
Yep.
And your latest article is over at Renegade Tribune, right?
That's the one. It's on there anyway. It's on spinfreehistory.com, so we don't have to go to Renegade Tribune. Okay. It's already on there.
I want to thank you very much. I love your voice. I love your compassion and your commitment. But I always say to people, Michael's 74, I'm 62, Chris is 14. Age doesn't matter. age doesn't matter at all. I'm actually very glad to have met Chris. He's been a big help. I'm just digging at him there, but. We have to work this together as we got to bring our generations together, because each generation has an awful lot to offer the other, and they've tried to keep us separated, and we do need to bring those generations together, and together we walk forward and we fix this problem. So Michael, again, thank you so very much for being on the show today, and we'll do this again in the future. Hopefully.
Thank you for the privilege and the pleasure. You have enjoyed the rest of the week, or what is left of the week anyway.
Okay. Take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air, making making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force them out, fuck them back